We're here to idea everyone, to fire up your curiosity and connect you with the people and ideas that shape our world. Watch, listen, understand, connect, create. Let's move the human story forward together.
Hello and welcome to The Poetry of Science, a podcast which provides insight into new scientific research via the medium of poetry. I'm your host, Dr. Sam Illingworth, and each week I'll be introducing you to some of the latest scientific findings and sharing a selection of science-themed poetry. After all, we could all do with a little bit more poetry in our lives. In this episode, I'll be exploring new research which has found that water arsenic is linked to higher urinary arsenic totals among the US population. Lurking in the depths, a ghostly presence unseen, unknown, thirsts for life. Regulation and illusion as it falls through wells and pipes to touch our lives with foul and tainted hands. Pushing at its rotten door, we peer into ripples of malaise, secreted shadows tracing dark and poisoned paths. Danger swells in wells that run, a current unbound to quench our thirst from toxic, ever-flowing tides. This poem is inspired by recent research published in the journal Environmental Research, which has established a link between water arsenic levels and higher urinary arsenic in people using private wells and public water systems in the US, emphasising the need for action to protect those at risk from arsenic exposure. Arsenic is a toxic element and a known carcinogen with no known safe levels of exposure. Long-term exposure to arsenic, even at low and moderate levels, can increase the risk of cancer and other types of chronic disease. As such, in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency regulates arsenic in public drinking water supplies. But private wells are not subject to the same regulations. Drinking water and diet are major sources of arsenic for most people, but the exact contribution of drinking water to overall arsenic exposure has been unclear, especially at lower levels in public water supplies. In this new study, researchers found a connection between water arsenic levels and higher urinary arsenic in people who use both private wells and public water systems in the United States. The study involved over 11,000 participants from the 2003 to 2014 National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. In analysing these results, they figured out how much arsenic was in the water of private wells and community water systems for each person based on where they lived. They then compared these values to recalibrated urinary dimethyl arsenate, which, as a substance found in urine when the body processes and gets rid of arsenic, is a way to measure the amount of arsenic in a person's body. Results showed 25% higher arsenic levels in community water system users' urine and 20% higher in private well users. The strongest link were among people in the South, West, and among Mexican American and non-Hispanic white and black participants, highlighting the need for action to protect those at risk from arsenic exposure. Now that you've heard the science, let me read the poem to you again. Lurking in the depths, a ghostly presence unseen, unknown, thirsts for life, regulation and illusion, as it falls through wells and pipes to touch our lives with foul and tainted hands. Pushing at its rotten door, we peer into ripples of malaise, secreted shadows tracing dark and poisoned paths. Danger swells in wells that run, a current unbound to quench our thirst from toxic, ever-flowing tides. In this section of the podcast, I like to share a poem written by another poet on a topic related to the science that has been discussed so far. In this episode, I'll be reading Water Route by Barry Sternleib. Barry Sternleib is the author of 4 chapbooks, the latest of which, Winter Crows, was awarded the 2008 Codhill Press Poetry Prize. His work appears in Poetry, The Southern Review, Virginia Quarterly, The Gettysburg Review, Southwest Review, and others. He is also the recipient of a 2004 Massachusetts Cultural Council Fellowship in Poetry. From 1986 to 2016, he edited Mad River Press, specialising in the very slow creation of handcrafted limited edition letterpress poetry broadsides and chapbooks. Waterroute by Barry Sternleib. Sailing the inside passage through mountain light, allow for how form and texture cultivate a mind roughly like wind and water. Call each island by the silence great passion must follow to teach true perspective. Let wood rhyme with dolphin, cloud with salt, north with now, but consider the course of ancient scroll, known more for the spirit of its strict calligraphy than for the meaning. Be present as sight is sworn in by sky and rock, which together make one seam between desires, between ways to turn. Get a sharp new take on darkness and leave a rival to those who would own what they can't imagine. Sailing the inside passage, watch life eat away at the infinite until only it remains. Thank you for listening to the Poetry of Science.
Thank you very much for being with us for this episode of the Idea Me Show. Idea Me is a global platform. Our mission is to move the human story forward by sharing knowledge of the future. You can find us on all major audio networks at www.radioideame.com, on YouTube and Vimeo. Please subscribe.